A bigoted policeman's taunts directed at a black National Security Council specialist ignited a courtroom drama that left onlookers aghast. Officer Derek Barnes, fueled by prejudice, belittled Agent Anya Banks, unaware of her crucial role in national security. His racist tirade exposed the festering biases within law enforcement, a stark display of ignorance and animosity. Anya, however, maintained her composure, a beacon of grace under pressure. Officer Barnes scoffed as he slammed shut the file, dismissing Anya as just another complainer contesting a ticket. Another waste of his precious time. He had no idea that she was about to expose a web of corruption that reached into the system's very core. Anya wasn't there to dispute a minor traffic violation. She was on a mission. Before we delve further, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. The scene unfolds at 8:00 a.m. at the federal courthouse in bustling downtown Atlanta. The air hummed with the energy of lawyers, plaintiffs, and observers. The marble floors gleaming under the fluorescent lights and carrying a faint scent of cleaning solution. Into this scene strode Anya Banks, tall, athletic, and radiating a quiet confidence. She wore a simple gray business suit and sensible black shoes. Her complexion was luminous, her hair neatly arranged, catching the morning light that streamed through the windows. Anya looked every bit the ordinary citizen, clutching a thin binder containing traffic tickets, a vehicle inspection report, and handwritten notes. The docket showed her case involved a broken taillight, expired registration, and alleged noncompliance with a police officer's orders. Behind this facade lay Anya's true identity. A highly skilled operative for the National Security Council, trained in cybersecurity, counterintelligence, and covert operations. She had dedicated years to protecting national security, dismantling terrorist networks, and thwarting espionage plots. Today, Anya's target was different, a network of local corruption potentially involving crooked cops, politicians, and shady business figures. As she waited in the security line, Anya subtly surveyed the foyer. Her target appeared, Officer Derek Barnes. Anya recognized him from his file photos, tall, broad-shouldered, with a meticulously groomed mustache. Barnes was suspected of filing false reports, leaking information to organized crime, and conducting biased stops. Every formal complaint had been dismissed or vanished due to political connections and family influence. Anya placed her binder on the conveyor belt, passed through the metal detector, and joined the crowd. Officer Barnes was deep in conversation with a court security guard, animatedly recounting a tale. Anya paused, scanning the corridors. She knew the building's layout intimately, the blind spots and seldom-used stairwells. A vibration signaled a text, "Eyes on you from third floor." All set. It was her partner, NSC Agent Kai Jackson, disguised as a court clerk, ready to assist. Anya texted a quick response, "R" for Roger. Her heart raced, but her face remained impassive. Reaching Courtroom 3B, Anya felt a familiar calm. At 8:45 a.m., she sat in the back row, crossed her legs, and placed her binder on her lap, confirming that her case would be called around 9:30. Officer Barnes was set to testify, likely exaggerating Anya's alleged disrespect and refusal to cooperate. Anya knew Barnes had a reputation for targeting black women, viewing them as easy targets. The question was how blatant he would be in a courtroom. She was not just contesting a ticket. She was dismantling his corrupt world. Officer Derek Barnes took pride in being the center of attention. Towering at 6 feet 2 inches, he exuded authority. Every morning he embellished his policing exploits. Underneath was a history of ethical compromises. His file contained bravery commendations and misconduct allegations. Complaints, mainly from minorities, spoke of racial slurs, unjustified searches, and escalated traffic stops. Internal affairs inquiries dissolved for lack of evidence or were quietly settled. Barnes believed he was protected by powerful friends due to his father's political career. Checking his watch, 8:48 a.m., he arrived early to flaunt his arrogance. Today's hearing was about a mouthy woman who dared question him. Barnes singled out those who challenged his authority. In his mind, Anya Banks was a troublemaker who needed to learn a lesson. Spotting her across the foyer, he remembered her self-assuredness and calm eyes. She had dared to demand probable cause. Barnes resolved to humiliate her publicly. He downed his coffee and headed toward Courtroom 3B, confident that the judge would favor a veteran officer. Anya's case was a simple matter of a stubborn citizen. Anya's case was called. She approached the podium. Officer Barnes stood opposite her, with a junior prosecutor. Judge Eleanor Ford, known for her strict fairness, presided. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The judge nodded for the prosecutor to begin, reading the city's case. Anya Banks was charged with operating a vehicle with a broken taillight, failure to provide identification, and resisting an officer. These misdemeanors could lead to fines or even a short jail sentence. Anya Lison de Kermley. Officer Barnes recounted his version of events. "I observed Ms. Banks's vehicle with a broken taillight. She refused to roll down her window fully, refused to provide her license, and was confrontational. I requested backup. The entire stop was unnecessarily difficult." Anya waited. Barnes intentionally omitted key details. His aggressive demeanor, banging on her taillight with his flashlight, and his condescending remarks. When the judge signaled for Anya to respond, she stepped up. "Your Honor, there is more to this. I have a signed statement from a mechanic stating there was no evidence of a broken taillight. Moreover, Officer Barnes was aggressive from the start." She produced the mechanic's report. The bailiff passed it to the judge, who scanned it critically. "Are you aware of this?" she asked the prosecutor. "We dispute its validity. Ms. Banks did not fully comply initially," the prosecutor said. Anya suppressed a smile, building doubt. She was peeling back the layers. "Was there dashcam footage?" the judge asked Officer Barnes. Barnes hesitated. "The dashcam malfunctioned, Your Honor. There is no recoverable footage." Anya looked at him. "I find that very convenient, officer. This seems to happen frequently in your cases, doesn't it?" The judge frowned. "Ms. Banks, stick to the specifics." "Yes, Your Honor," Anya replied. She had sown the seed that Barnes's word was not absolute. She also knew that he had mysteriously had dash cam malfunctions multiple times, according to internal records. For now, she would let the tension simmer. Given the conflicting reports, the judge set a continued hearing. "Officer Barnes, provide any relevant maintenance logs. Ms. Banks, gather your evidence. We will resolve the matter then." "Understood," Anya said. She met Barnes's stare, radiating hostility. The hearing ended with a bang of the gavel. Anya gathered her things. As she passed Barnes, he muttered, "You're wasting your time. I don't lose in this courthouse." Anya paused. "We'll see, officer." Barnes snorted and walked away. Anya watched him go, feeling determination. She had made the first crack in Barnes's credibility. Leaving the courtroom, Anya stepped into the city air and headed to a cafe 2 blocks away, checking for surveillance. Inside, she found Agent Kai Jackson. "Anything unusual?" Jackson asked. Anya shook her head. "He's suspicious, but not enough yet. He thinks I'm just a headstrong woman trying to fight a losing ticket." Jackson sipped his coffee. "You played it well. If we push too hard, he'll close ranks." "I know. By the next hearing, I want enough evidence to corner him. Once we do, he might flip on the ring," Anya said. "We've been digging," Jackson replied. "Baxter likely shares intel with a local gang. They pay him to sabotage investigations. We suspect there are city officials involved." "This is bigger than I expected," Anya admitted. "I gather evidence. We push for departmental records. We see if Baxter panics. Once he does, we trace the lines upward. Be cautious. If Baxter suspects, he could get violent," Jackson cautioned. Anya thought of her self-defense tactics and the sidearm in her car. "I can handle myself. I'll be careful. Follow the money trail. And we have a contact in the police department's IT division who might confirm if dashcam footage was recorded on Baxter's night shifts." They agreed to reconvene in a couple of days. Anya left, aware that each step brought her closer to confrontation. She was committed. She'd never walked away from a mission. That afternoon, Officer Barnes paced the precinct break room, cell phone to his ear. Through a window, he saw patrol cars. Frustration crackled in his voice. This woman is pushing it, demanding those dash cam logs. I told the judge it malfunctioned, but I can't produce what doesn't exist. Something's off. Maybe I need your help to make sure certain records stay unavailable. Ending the call, Barnes forced himself to appear casual. Uncertainty gnawed at him. He reminded himself that he'd handled bigger challenges thanks to connections. This Anya Banks might be persistent, but she was still just a lone defendant. Later that day, Anya sat in her apartment under her civilian alias. She logged onto an NSE server, uploading a summary of the day's events, and opened a program to communicate with a cyber division ally. Local law enforcement servers showed unauthorized access. Someone was tampering with digital evidence. She jotted down, "Need official subpoena for server logs if feasible." Leaning back, Anya gazed at the city lights. Each skyscraper seemed to hold a secret. She felt a pulse of excitement, but also sensed the risk. Focus, she told herself, reviewing her mental checklist. Departmental documents, malfunction reports, cross-check Baxter's schedule with drug busts. Even the slightest slip could tip Baxter off. Undercover work demanded nuance. For days later, after a morning jog, Anya noticed something off with her parked car. The driver's side mirror hung at a strange angle, the rear tires slashed. A jolt of anger coursed through her. Looking around, she saw no witnesses or cameras. This was deliberate, an intimidation tactic. She examined the tire slashes, clean, precise cuts. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Anya answered cautiously. "Hello," a muffled voice said. "Next time it'll be more than your tires." The line went dead. Anya froned, adrenaline surging. She scanned her surroundings, but the street was empty. She quickly locked her phone and texted Agent Jackson. Car vandalized, possible threat, taking precautions. She was no stranger to intimidation, but this was a domestic scenario with a corrupt cop. Even so, she refused to be rattled. "They want me scared," she thought. "They're trying to make me back down." She would respond by digging deeper, doubling her efforts. The next day, Anya filed a formal motion with the court to expand discovery, referencing the suspicious pattern of missing dash cam footage. 2 days later, she received notice that the judge had allowed it. Simultaneously, Anya got a text from Jackson. "DA's office just learned about your subpoena. They're not happy, expect pushback." That evening, Anya spoke with a contact at the NSC, confirming legal basis to keep pushing. A day later, Anya arrived at the police station's records division, presenting her official subpoena. She's escorted to the viewing room. It wasn't long before she'd found many entries that were labeled corrupted, cannot open, and others that had normal timestamps and file sizes. Over the next few hours, she painstakingly clicked through each available video, noting their dates, stamps, lengths, and content. She rechecked every possibility, concluding that indeed her specific date was missing from the official record. By the time Ebony finished, her notepad was filled with references to missing timestamps and suspicious corrupt labels. Ebony felt the tension coiling. The pattern of missing files was too deliberate. Stepping out into the late afternoon, Ebony caught a glimpse of Baxter across the street, leaning against his patrol car. He stared directly at her, making no move to hide his hostility. She stared back. Calmly, eventually, he pushed off from the car and drove away. Ebony quietly resolved to watch her back. Closely, men like Baxter rarely gave up power without a fight. 2 nights before the court hearing, Ebony received a cryptic phone call on her personal line. I work in the department." The voice continued. "I've seen Baxter's name on some shady documents. I heard you were the one challenging him in court. I'd like to see these documents," she said calmly. "Tomorrow night, the old parking garage on 3rd and Willow, level 3, far corner. Come alone if I see anyone else." I'm gone. The line went dead. Agent Price was somewhere below, hidden in a vantage point with line of sight to Ebony's location. She reached the far corner, her ears straining for the slightest sound. The figure held out a manila envelope. Ebony stepped forward and took it cautiously. She opened it enough to see photocopies of what appeared to be deposit slips, wire transfer confirmations, and INT. Renown memos referencing cooperative officers, including a name spelled out: Baxter. "Where did you get these?" Ebony asked. "I do admin stuff in the property and evidence section. I recognize Baxter's name on these suspicious transactions. They pay him, and sometimes he passes on intel about police schedules." "I need to stay alive." Before Ebony could respond, the squeal of tires echoed through the garage. The tipster cursed and bolted deeper into the shadows. Ebony heard a quick shuffle, then a muffled cry as one of the men was tackled to the ground. Ebony seized the moment to step out from her hiding spot and level her sidearm in a stable stance. "Drop it," she shouted, seeing the man reaching into his jacket. Now he froze, stared at Ebony, then slowly raised his hands. They left the two men bound safe in her car. Ebony examined the manila envelope again. The documents might be the missing puzzle piece, financial proof linking Baxter to off-the-books payments. She was in fact an NSA operative with a network of allies ready to blow his corruption ring wide open. But Ebony didn't flinch. She took a seat on the defendant's side, setting her evidence on the table. In addition, the logs referencing my stop indicate a successful recording for nearly 10 minutes. The official story is that it doesn't exist, so where did it go? They were both taken in under arrest. Ebony saw it was time for her to step in and share who she was, and that she was the one in charge and knew what the officer was doing and was on the take for quite some time.